Hi everyone, I'm Josie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been trying to make this video for a while, kind of, not this specific video, but an introductory video. I've wanted to start a YouTube channel for a long time, but I guess I felt that right now was a good time to make this video, finally, because I feel like I finally have something worthwhile to talk about. So the title of this video is going to be about how I published my first novel and how I think everything happens for a reason, which I genuinely do, because I wouldn't have finished the novel that I wrote if it wasn't for the circumstances that happened in my life the past couple of months, I would say since last November. So this video isn't going to be as much about actually writing and publishing it. I will touch on that, but it's more going to be about the whole how I think everything happens for a reason and what led me up to doing this thing that I wanted to do for since I was 13. Basically, my story begins last May, and without going into too much detail, I got very sick, basically. But in May, I was experiencing symptoms of a sickness that would get very bad later on in the year that would bring me almost to my, I don't want to say deathbed because that sounds really morbid, but I was really, really sick last November, like to the point where I honestly probably could have died if I didn't go to the hospital when I did. But I will get to that. So basically, last May I was hospitalized. I had really bad abdominal pains. I was basically having really bad digestive issues, but it hadn't gotten to like the point where it did later in 2017. But I ended up in the ER. I ended up getting like a really bad infection and a fever, and I was in the ER for a good couple of hours, probably a good like half of the day. And then I was admitted and I was in the hospital for about 2 days. End of story. I went back to my normal life after that. I stubbornly didn't really do what the doctor told me to do, but that's another story. But I went back to my normal life. I went back to school. I went back to work. I was waitressing at the time, and everything was normal for a couple of months. And then come last November, this is my own being an idiot, so I want to put that as a disclaimer right now. If you experiencing anything like what I was experiencing, you should go to the doctor right away. You should not wait. But in my life, I had been sick for about a month. I would say I started getting sick. I started getting fevers. I would have a fever about every other day, starting the end of last September. And I was having really bad digestive issues again without getting into too many details. And basically, to give you perspective, I ended up coming to the conclusion that on my own that I had colitis. And it really scared me to consider that, because as far as colitis or like an autoimmune disorder like that goes, you have it perpetually, and it's something that comes back all the time. And the fact that you have to take medication throughout your whole life if you have it also scared the heck out of me, because I was 23 at the time. The idea of having to take medication for the rest of my life was not a very appealing idea to me. I'm sure it's not to anyone, but as a 20-year-old, basically, it really scared me. So yeah, basically, I avoided going to the doctor. I avoided doing anything about it besides like some changes to my diet and some other stupid home remedies that I would never recommend to anyone, because that's just how I work. I'm not saying it's smart, but that's what I did. So then by the time that November rolls around, I'm sorry if I'm like rocking back and forth on this chair. It's like wobbly. I'll try to stop doing that. By the time that November came around, I was really sick. I had lost like 20 pounds in a month. And again, I'm not saying this so anybody out there is like, oh, I wish I could get colitis to lose weight. No, believe me, you do not want this autoimmune disorder. But finally in November, I was so sick that I went to the doctor. And the sad part is that I only went to the doctor because I needed a doctor's note, because I knew with how weak I'd gotten that I would not be able to work. Really sad. Basically, I went to the doctor and they told them I had symptoms. I didn't, leave any details out because I knew how sick I was by that time. I knew I needed help. And the doctor told me to go right to the ER. So once again, second time in 2017, I was in the ER. And this time it was a lot worse than the first. I was really sick and I knew it. I had no energy. Like I said, I lost about 20 pounds in a month because I could not eat as much as I wanted to. I wasn't throwing up, but I'll let you infer about what was happening. Everything was going straight through me. My body was not digesting anything. And yeah, if you know what colitis is, you know what was going on. So basically, I ended up being in the hospital for a full week. It was the most miserable week of my entire life. And I'd been waitressing at the time. I've been waitressing at the same place for about 3 years at that point, and I knew with how sick I was, I would not be able to continue doing that. And I've been wanting to move on for a little bit as well. I've been going to school at FIT for the past, this will be my third year. I started as a 1-year associate's degree, so this is my last year. So I've been going there for 3 years roughly. I'm bad at math, sorry. But yeah, I've had other things going on, so I've been toying around with the idea of moving on anyway. So basically, I quit my job when I got sick, when I was in the hospital. I knew when I got out, I would not be able to go back and start waitressing for a while. And it was also kind of like the push that I needed to decide, all right, I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to move on. So I did that. I quit, got out of the hospital. I did more of my own research, which again, if you are sick with anything like this, any immune disorder or anything in general, go to the doctor. Don't do what I did. But again, this is just what I personally did. I kept researching colitis and certain things that could cause it, and I ended up figuring out what made me sick in the first place. And to this day, I don't take any medication. I haven't had any digestive issues, again, because I figured it out. I figured out what it was, and I eliminated it from my diet, which I would probably make another video on this. I'm not going to get into it right now, but what I figured out was making me sick is the ingredient carrageenan. Since I've cut it out of my diet, I haven't had a drop of it since before I got sick in November, before I ended up in the hospital in November. I've been fine. I got better when I got out of the hospital. I got back to a healthy weight, and I've been fine. My camera stops at 10 minutes. Another 10 minutes on the clock. Okay. So when the video ended before, I was saying that a lot of people will probably see me talking about how I don't take medication and whatnot, and how I figured it out on my own, and think that I'm stupid for it, which that's completely fine. You can, if I end up getting sick again, I'll be the first person to admit it, but I haven't. So for now, I'm assuming that I don't actually have colitis, and it is just that one thing that I was allergic to. But that's another video. So basically, come 2018, I would say over winter break, I was looking for another job. I knew I needed some kind of an income. And nothing really worked out. I applied for a couple things and nothing really worked out. And I happened to start writing again, and that's another whole other video in itself, although I did want to touch on it in this video. So basically, when I was 13, I don't even know how I got into this, but I ended up reading a book by the author Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, and aside, like, all of the, like, alternative history, like, and controversy and whatnot aside, if you don't know what the book is about, then you won't really know that it's kind of it's about a controversial topic, about how he believes through his research that there was a civilization that we aren't acknowledging in conventional history. Well, in the story of our history, if that makes sense right now. Civilizations. Aside from all the controversy having to do with that idea, I thought when I read the book that that would be an amazing story for a novel, an amazing concept for a novel. So at the time when I was 13, I'd been writing for a couple of years, nothing like serious. I'm sure it was all really bad. I can't really find anything besides this one novel that I wrote that would eventually become the novel that I just published. And believe me, it's went through a lot of changes. I did not. It's unrecognizable to what I wrote when I was 13. Just as a disclaimer, like, just if like you end up thinking about checking it out, it's not like a 13-year-old wrote it. But yeah, basically, I read Fingerprints of the Gods, and I thought that that would be such a fascinating concept for a novel. So I wrote, I would say, about a 70,000 word novel when I was 13. And again, it was very unprofessional. It was very like la-di-da, like I'm just gonna make my characters go to Starbucks and hang out and do stupid crap and not really further any concrete plot. But at the backbone of the story was the idea that there was this lost civilization that they're basically coming, that they have a connection to, the characters in the present time. And that's definitely the concept that I kept the backbone of the novel that I just published, which is called Finding Anevra. But it's very different. It's developed a lot since then, understandably. But yeah, basically I had written that when I was 13, and throughout the years I wanted to rewrite it. I did rewrite some of it. I kept it in the back of my mind for years. I did want to go back and publish it one day or do something with it, but I'd come to believe that it wasn't really in the cards for me. Like, after, when I was 13, I don't know if it was just my own critic, the critic inside me telling me this or what, but it just felt like it was so much easier for me to write when I was 13. And then, you know, I told people about it. I had friends who read it, and I had, you know, all these people telling me like, oh, you can't do that as a living, yada yada, like, that's nice, but you can't depend on something like that, which, you know, they were right for the most part about. But it got really into my head, and I forgot about it for a while. Like I said, it was always in the back of my mind, but I just let go of it, basically. So, yeah, come back to January 2018. I just picked it up again. I don't know what it was really that compelled me. I think I got a new laptop. Maybe that was kind of what made me want to like start writing again. But yeah, I just started writing again, and it was strange because it was so easy for me again compared to the way it was when I was younger. I think it definitely had to do with the fact that I started reading fiction again, which, just side note, I think that that is such an important element in your life if you do want to be a writer, and if you do want to like write a book in its entirety, and, you know, just know how to just develop your writing skills. But I think that's another reason why I was able to write again, because I had that voice in my mind developing again, if that makes sense. But yeah, so in January I started writing it. I got a couple of chapters done, whatever. And then in, I want to say March of 2018, I ended up getting employed again, kind of by an unconventional place. I ended up going to Central Casting, so I could do like background acting. So through that and another website called the Casting Networks, I started doing back. I ended up being in a couple shows and movies. Like I can name some of them right now because they came out. But I was in Younger. I was also in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. You can like see me in one of the episodes. But yeah, so I started doing that, and that's not a very consistent job, but it ended up being the perfect thing for me because I could choose when I worked. It was fun. It was like a creative way of spending my time and making money. And I think it really taught me a lot about writing. I think it kind of taught me how brief a scene can be between characters just to further the plot, if that makes sense. Yeah, it definitely taught me about like story writing and setting, and it's been a really cool experience. I still do it to this day, but the past couple of months of my life, like while I've been finishing the book, I haven't been doing it as much. But yeah, it came, I started doing it at the perfect time, and just to give credit where credit's due, my friend John actually was the one who did recommend that I go to Central Casting. It wasn't just something that I happened upon. So yeah, just to give credit. So yeah, that job ended up putting me into the perfect circumstances to spend a lot of my time writing, because I could take off whenever I wanted. It helped me become a better writer. And yeah, basically when the summer started, I had about 20,000 words of like the new version of my novel. And I ended up scrapping a good amount of it because I wasn't happy with where it was going. And once again, I was kind of at square one. So then I would say by the middle of June, I had sat down again, and I just had this, like, I was just compelled to write it. And I read Stephen King's On Writing again as well, and I think that also helped. And I kind of just made myself sit down and write every single day, like at least 1,000 words. And usually I would end up writing a lot more than that, if I felt compelled, or if there was like something specific that I wanted to get across. Okay, 10 more minutes on the clock. We're gonna make this the last part of the video. So yeah, when this last part ended, I was talking about how every day I would make myself write, and basically it was so mind-blowing, because by the end of July, I had an 100,000 word manuscript, and I know that doesn't necessarily mean much. You could be sitting there like, well, yeah, maybe you had 100,000 words, but was the book even good? And I don't know. I've had friends and family, mostly who have read it, that think it's really good. I won't really know until I get more reviews and more readers. So I can only be optimistic right now. But this is just, my story. Anyway, yeah, by the end of July I had 100,000 words. And it was just something that I felt so driven to finish and to get out to the world, because I was so happy with it and I was so in love with the story that I wrote. So basically I ended up going through CreateSpace to publish it, and as of August 20th, the Kindle version was published, and now the paperback was published on the 23rd. So right now I'm in a very like strange, exciting place, but also a very scary place, because I don't know how well it's gonna do. I can only hope that it will find a base of readers, and that people will enjoy it. And yeah, basically my anecdote with this whole video is that you should never give up on your dreams. You should always keep them in the back of your mind. And even if, you know, you don't get as much recognition for them as you'd like, just the fact of knowing that you tried is so validating and so worthwhile. Like, just the fact, like, you know, sometimes I let my insecurities kind of get to me, and I wonder if it was even worth going through all the trouble. But in the end, I go back and think to myself, like, wow, I actually rewrote the novel that as a 13-year-old, it was my dream to write and, like, get out to the world and, like, make it like a professional novel, like a full-fledged, like, plot-driven novel. And I did that, at least in my own opinion. I did it to my satisfaction, and I did publish it, so it's like a dream come true. It's so crazy. But many times when I was younger that it wasn't worth, you know, putting my time and effort into doing something like that. Like, anything with the arts is never gonna make you a living, and in the end, honestly, it'd be nice to get a big readership and get, like, have a lot of people read my book, just because I am so passionate about it and so in love with the story that I truly do want to share it with as many people as I can. But that's not necessarily even my goal. Like, I just wanted to get it out there so people could read the story. As I said earlier in the video, I've been going to FIT. I'm about to graduate with my bachelor's in business, so I'm not depending on it for an. But yeah, other than following your dreams, the one point that I wanted to talk about was how everything does happen for a reason, and sometimes, you know, a really horrible thing that might happen to you can end up being the reason that you find something or do something that you've always dreamed about. Like, if I had never gotten sick last year, if it hadn't been the worst year of my entire life where I almost died, I probably would have never been put in the circumstances that led me to writing the novel and fulfilling one of my biggest dreams. So yeah, that's basically the points I wanted to touch on in this video. I definitely plan on making some more videos, maybe about writing and how to follow through, and I don't consider myself an expert in the slightest, but I've had a few people ask me some questions. It's really up in the air right now. But yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Let me know what you thought about my story and share your own as well. Especially if you're an aspiring writer, definitely get in contact with me or just leave me a comment. We can support each other. And yeah, thank you for watching.